An asteroid as wide as 886 cans of spam may hit the Earth in 2032.
Yeah, it's all about 9/11 and MT. Everything else can fuck off, basically.
Yeah.
There goes.
Yeah, good. That one. If anyone's listening, take record that.
Messieurs and Madames of the service station.
Right, I'm turning my. Hello, and welcome to episode 25 of the Car Podcast with Chris Harris and his friends. Now, we've delivered some chaos over the last 8 or 9 months, but I suspect this one might be the most chaotic so far. As you might be able to see from my computer, I am sitting in the entrance to a petrol station somewhere in the middle of France, because it's the only time we could all manage to get together this week. So if I drop in and out, or I get told to leave, and there's a lot of people lobbing frog's legs at me, then you'll realise that I've been rumbled by the authorities and they don't want me nicking their Wi-Fi. We do have a couple of special guests arriving later on this one. So as Neil Clifford just wisely pointed out in our intro, just what you need when you've got 2 guests coming on, Harris. But I'm nothing if not a shambles, and I hope that you enjoy what comes up next. We're going to start with a little review of the F1 launch for teenagers that happened a couple of nights ago. And I think I didn't watch it because I've been travelling around doing stuff, but I gather my 3 learned colleagues did. So I reckon, Manish, can you tell us what it was like to watch Liberty's attempt, it might be a very good attempt, to encourage a new younger audience to be interested in Formula One?
Wow, I didn't see this live. I was at a cooking evening with my son. And it was his birthday present. So while we were making falafels, this event was going on, and my phone kept buzzing. And various middle-aged men like me were buzzing, basically saying, "What the fuck is going on? I don't understand this. This is absolute rubbish." So I text Neil in the middle of this going, "What's going on, Neil?" I've had all of these sort of quite leery texts. And Neil texts back going, "Actually, it's really pretty bloody well done. And Emma, Vincent and I are enjoying ourselves." And then Mr. Cooper comes in going, "I think this is pretty well done, actually." So I went home and I decided to ignore my text and watch it. And I have to say, it was pretty well done. The production quality was very high. There were 20,000 kids in the O2 arena screaming away. I saw the ticket prices were 50, 75 and £100 each. So,
Wow.
£1.5 million on average was probably made. And what I would say, though, two things I took away from this. The first one was I thought there was a little bit of a disjunction between the average age of the audience and the average age of a team boss who had to come out and wave like a robot. And I think the drivers really should have been the stars of this. And I think the particular culprit here for me was Mr. Horner. Someone that shall remain nameless but was there told me that YouTube did not manage to convey the loudness of the booing.
There was a lot of booing.
Oh my God. Apparently when Horner and when the FIA were mentioned, it was serious boozeville. And there was almost a sense that they needed to get them off the stage ASAP. And what I would say is I think Max Verstappen, it's my sort of hero mode now, he was like the Mona Lisa, if you watch this. He neither smiled nor frowned. He just had this kind of horizontal, zippy face, like this all the way through, said nothing, as 50 people danced behind him, like this, literally guys with bottle hats. It was absolutely hilarious. And his young teammate, who you'd have thought Horner could probably push around a bit to say something, also said nothing. So I thought that was kind of quite. I thought that was maybe quite telling about, who knows, internal power struggles. God knows what's happening. And my second point would be, given that I'm a film writer, we go for climaxes. This is the thing I was kind of getting at. I don't think you can have 10 climaxes in a movie that are all the same. And I think that was the slight except for that kind of movie. You're quite right, Neil. But literally, you know, you had a car being unveiled after a video of the car, you know, car's history, and then another car gets unveiled, then another, and they do kind of look the same, and the colors are maybe a little bit different. So I think that was the only really big criticism. Perhaps the next year, what they could do is maybe all 10 cars get unveiled after some kind of show, and they're on a rotating plinth or something like that. Take that as singing over the top, so that there's kind of one reveal rather than 10. Because I think after about the third one, I was a bit revealed out, if I'm honest. I was a bit revealed out. So there it is.
Well, they all look the same, don't they? I didn't watch this. I mean, first of all, I'm fascinated by your use of the word climax. It's a word I didn't realise that makes me judder, along with moist and gusset. So I don't ever want to hear. I don't ever want to hear that word again, Manish, in the context of any kind of filmmaking. So that's you reprimanded for this podcast. I love your observation of Max Verstappen, because what we're dealing with here is someone who I do believe, as he gets older, has become a real pragmatist. Max is arguably the purest racing driver of his generation. He wants to get in a car and win, then get in his new jet, which is painted like the old jet, and go home. But Max also wants to be paid 100 million quid a year. Therefore, he understands this circus shite that goes on is going to afford him better chances to earn 100 million quid. So he sits there and soaks it up. But you can tell he does it under duress, and I quite like that. Chris Cooper, what did you think of it?
I thought it was great. I think everything about this is great. I mean, it's not many years ago where at this point of the year, the previous generation of leadership of the sport would have said, oh, no, you can't see anything yet. No, we haven't charged you yet. We need to wait until the first race or when testing started. Oh, no, you can't see that. You can't watch it. Oh, no. No one's paying for that. So this kind of like, it's all out there. I think it's just, I mean, I didn't watch it on Tuesday. I watched a bit of it. And I thought, actually, do you know what? I thought that Jack Whitehall actually did quite a good, I thought he almost did a better job than almost anybody else could. He was not too serious. I thought that was pretty good. I thought when he introduced at the beginning, he introduced Lewis as, you know, the star of the sport. You know, he careers around the track, you know, with all of his speed, and he careers around the paddock dressed like a Fortnite character. I thought, actually, he is really doing that. So I thought it was, I mean, the problem it's done is it's made the season so, we're all so excited for it. This year could be the best year ever. All the teams are close. Last year of the regulations. Who's going to win it? There's a danger it's a bit like that New Year's Eve party you've been planning for ages. And all the people who wanted to go are turning up. They got the venue, all the right people, all the food. It's going to be better than anything. I can't tell you how. And you get to 11:45, because it's usually about 11:45, isn't it? Whatever the F1 season equivalent of 11:45 on New Year's Eve, you think, is it as good? Is it? Dear. So, just to make sure there's some excitement, I've got some predictions. I predict that there will be no drivers fined for swearing this year, just to cover myself.
Do you mean no swearing, or there will be swearing but no fines?
I said no drivers fined for swearing.
I know. I'm asking you the question.
I'm keeping that open.
Quincy.
I'm keeping that open. Quincy MD. This in the opening titles of Quincy. This is the point where he exposed the top of the head and said, "There's the brain,"
and they all go,
and they all faint. I think one of Lewis or Charles will basically not have a career by the end of this year.
Ooh.
I don't know which one.
Could I just say, just as a slight non sequitur, the first time I was at medical school and someone took a skull off a person, I did faint. I just want to put that out there.
There you go. That's Quincy was right.
He was good, Quincy.
He was.
I enjoyed the program, but I think on reflection, I think Manish is dead right. 10 climaxes is hard.
That is in one night.
And I did actually therefore go to bed.
This thing has gone to shit. We're just talking about climaxes again.
Yeah, sorry, but I think Manish's point is very, very apt. I think that, but the graphics, and it wasn't just young people. There were lots of older people in black tie, and I was invited actually. But I thought, oh God, the O2 it takes 4 days to get home from the O2. It's just like the worst place for an event to be. But the graphics of that whole thing was really amazing. And actually, one of our special guests that is coming on in a moment was actually the feature of the Red Bull launch. If you watch the Red Bull launch, he was in that. It was filmed with him in it. So that would be interesting. And I thought it was just really good. You know, I suppose the irony is that my wife and son stayed up to watch it and enjoyed it more than me, and therefore I think their strategy of broadening their audience probably is therefore working.
Yeah.
That is the strategy, isn't it?
It's a winner.
Sorry, it's getting a bit busy here in the old service station. I didn't watch it, but yesterday I happened to be in Maranello, which is the town where Ferraris are made. And I went there because it was my friend's 50th birthday. Happy birthday, Andy Martin. Lovely to spend the day with you. And his lovely wife booked him a meal at the Cavallino. He'd never been there before. He lives in America. So we all went along. And it was rammed. I couldn't move. I've never seen the place so busy. Turns out Lewis was there. I didn't know. People think I'm lying about that. I had no idea whatsoever. So all I can tell you is what the Lewis effect is like around Ferrari. Ferrari is the most self-assured car company I've ever met. It lives in its own little bubble. It feels totally self-reliant, and as if nothing in the outside world affects it, nor does it acknowledge the outside world. But Lewis Hamilton has altered Ferrari already. I tell you, there was a smile on the faces of the employees, and it's impish. Look at the energy around this place. I spoke to 2 properly grizzled, seasoned Ferrari employees on the road car side, and they were like, this is amazing. This is exactly what Michael did to this place when he came along in 96, 97. And so I think they're really excited. I just got this sense of deep excitement there. And then I thought to myself, I'll continue with this because they love Lewis. They think he's just wonderful. And I said to this guy, I said, so Lewis or Charles? And he went, Charles. Straight off the bat, went Charles. And I went, why? He said, because are you as quick as you were when you were 25 years old, Chris? And I went, no, I'm not.
Oh, no, sorry, you. Sorry, you.
Here we go. And I think there's so much in that. I'm slightly focused on the Italian thing. I think not speaking Italian in that team is a real disadvantage, but I think the age thing might catch up with him a bit. I want him to win so much, though. I really do. And the buzz around the place was magnificent. And on a totally selfish note, I walked into the Cavallino restaurant, and the first thing I saw on the right-hand side on the new wall of photos, there's not many photos to summarise the history of that great company, has a photograph of Luca Montezemolo and Niki Lauda on the wall when you walk in. And for reasons that you'll find out maybe later this year, I really love the fact that Luca's on the wall in that place. I'm over the moon for that. So what do we think? Has it whet your appetite more for this season, Neil, or do you just view it as part of the circus?
Yeah, I think. Look, I'm just desperate for it. Will be one of the biggest sporting events ever if Lewis comes back and wins, won't it? It will be miraculous. I just hope, which is not the case because Max is, a machine. The fact that he's undoubtedly going to Aston or probably Mercedes in 26 for like £1 billion, you hope he just takes his foot off the gas like 1% and leaves it to Lewis. I think that you just hope that is the case.
The algorithm this week tells me that we have to choose a £23,000 shed. So much like the Hubble telescope as it spins off into the galaxy and becomes more and more remote, as does the relevance of our financial calculation to create what we call a shed. A £23,000 car is something one should be proud of, not a shed, but we call it a shed, not because we're rich, but because we're silly. Okay, we'll make that clear. So I'm going to be democratic and go first because I fancy it. I never go first on this one. So there's only one car I consistently look at this price range. I've mentioned it 2 or 3 times on here before, and it means I'm going to have to buy one. I found myself a beautiful little manual Megane RS. It's actually under the price. It's 19 and a half grand, this one. I wanted a manual one. You can only get a manual 280 because the 300 has a DCT only, and I want a manual gearbox. So I'm going to spend the rest of it on a private track day at Val de Vienne, which is a circuit in the southwest of France, not far from Poitiers, which has got very, very high curbstones that can rip a door off a car if you're racing there. Don't tell me how I know that. So I just love these cars. This one's also proper old man spec. If you look at it, this is so rare. It's got chrome trims.
Oh, I love that.
Look at that around the windows. How rare is that on a French hatchback?
That is
Chrome
nice.
trims around the windows. So I think these are joyous cars. I think a genre of car that we're going to really regret leaving us behind is the honest, slightly poorly built French hot hatchback.
Yes.
You know, how many? I think my predecessor at Top Gear, Mr. Jeremy Clarkson, who was a sage voice on the subject of cars and the greatest car program presenter of them all. He's been quoted so many times as saying you can't be a real car enthusiast unless you've owned an Alfa Romeo. I think it's a French hot hatchback for me, my generation. I really do. I just think you get in them and they tease out of you that slight dickish thing. And I love, you get in it and get every corner that you should be in third, you're in second. They just go a little bit fast, but there's not so much power that you're reckless. So here endeth my lesson on the French hot hatchback. Sorry, I'm so passionate about them. I'm just driving through France now. Do you know what? You don't see any of them anymore because they've taxed them off the bloody road here. So everyone's just got Dacias and there's no nice hatchback. It used to be hatchback central because anything expensive or German was rightly taxed off the road in France. And they'd buy hot hatches, but they don't even have those now. It's really sad. Manish, what car are you going to have for your £23,000?
Well, if you remember, week before last, I went for the Bentley with the £2 billion headlamps. Yes. My shed is all about just looking at this shed. I just want to make this completely clear. And I've no idea whether I can afford to drive this. I can tell you one thing: I wouldn't want to drive this car in Rome. But I found this in Bedford, 21,000 miles, 1978. White, looks pretty immaculate, actually. It probably drives like a monkey, but it's a C3 Corvette. Can you see that?
Oh.
£20,000.
Yeah.
There may be some bills, but I've got 3,000. Can you see it's got the exhausts on the side? I mean, it's got the whole thing.
Nothing's going to go wrong with that.
Not at all.
No, exactly. It won't go around a corner either, probably. You would not want this in Rome, but God, I love the idea of that in my shed.
Yeah.
The Bentley and then that. How good is that?
Yeah.
Good.
I don't really know where to begin with that.
Why don't you begin with, it's a 1978 car with just 20,000 miles on it. Why is it 20 grand, Manish?
I just love the idea of you turning up in it, probably with some oil smoke coming out the side exhausts. There'd be a massive tappet noise because the engine's about to shit itself. It would look so uncouth that you'd be one of the comedy characters in the Cannibal Run. Then you'd get out with your beautifully spoken English and go, "Hello, everyone. How are you? Here's my new Corvette." And everyone would think, "What the fuck is this?" It's brilliant. Chris Good, what are you going to have for your £23,000?
Well, I'm glad you raised this spectre of the Hubble telescope spiraling off on its orbit. Because coming the other way, and this is why I think we've got to get through this material in our podcast pretty quickly, spiraling the other way is this bloody big asteroid. Have you heard about it?
Yeah, 2032.
Yeah.
2032.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got, and this week in the papers, so it must be true, it was reported that the chances of it hitting the Earth have increased by 50% since December. It's gone from 2% chance to 3% chance. 3% chance of an extinction level event. But the best part of that story was, that to try and convey to the great unwashed how big something is, an area the size of Finland or Wales today, or it's as big as Nelson's Column or the Super Bowl Stadium. I've got a new metric. The august publication called The Register, I'm sure it's a very high quality publication, said I'm not making this up, an asteroid as wide as 886 cans of spam may hit the Earth in 2032. Spam to younger viewers is not some irritant on social media or emails. It's a tin of overly processed, originally once might have been meat-based comestible. So I thought the unit of size of a can of spam
Yeah.
made. I'd like to see this asteroid. Not that
Can I
close,
ask you one
just to see
question?
whether
Can I
it
ask
is
you one
a.
question? In the famous sketch Monty Python, how many times in the last spam dish does she say spam?
Don't know.
886?
Can someone find out for me? It's spam, 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 and I think it's
Yeah.
6. It feels about right.
Our
Yeah.
producer
sorry,
will
carry on.
get one of his. Yeah. So have got to answer your question. At this point, and I've threatened this before, there is only one shed for £23,000. Although I've got 23,995. It's a private seller. We'll do a deal.
Oh, you've done
It's
it wrong again.
It's a K series engine, Caterham R400. K series engine, revs to 8,000 and a million.
Yeah.
It's just a smidge under 24k, 6-speed gearbox, K series engine, nice and original, 16,000 miles, 2004, in our canon of great cars. Got to be a Caterham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. So I think that would just be, alongside the Corvette, that would make a great 2-car garage. There's no situation one of those 2 cars wouldn't cover.
So if you had those on your semi
Okay.
in Milton Keynes, if you had those on the driveway in your semi in Milton Keynes, everyone that drive past would go, yeah, there's that prick having a midlife crisis.
Yeah. Cool. Great. That's us.
Yeah, that's true.
Neil, what are you having for your £23,000?
Milton Keynes is the right place to have a Caterham because you've got a lot of roundabouts.
A lot of roundabouts, a lot of second gear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Shall I give you the correct answer?
Please.
Well, we'll be the judge of that.
I've actually stuck to the budget. £23,000. There's only one car really that one is searching on Auto Trader and Piston Heads for £23,000, unless it's a 996, of course, and that is the infamous M3 BMW. It would be a crime if one of us didn't mention, when we're talking about sheds and money, that we didn't raise the issue of the M3 BMW. The M3 BMW could be a podcast on its own. Exactly. That's the big discussion. And the conclusion of what I've chosen is probably the worst car you could buy as an M3 for £23,000. But I'll come to that because it's a very difficult, do you go the best, apart from CSL, E46? Because you can get a really good E46 for 23, unless you go CSL or that silly one, CS, with the silly spoiler on the back. Why the hell was that? That was terrible. Or do you go, I'm going to risk a cheap E90, and do you get a manual one? You can't really get a manual one as an E90. Is the V8 better than the straight 6? There's lots and lots and lots of discussions about M3, isn't there? And do you go SMG or do you go manual, convertible or coupe or 4-door? I mean, it goes on and on and on. It's a whole podcast. So, yes, I went for the best coloured one I could find, and being probably the shittest one. But I think colours make cars, as we know. So look at that.
Is that
It's an
bronzy?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an E46. It's M3 cab. As you get older, cabriolets are basically better than non-cabriolets. This is the extremely rare colour combination of messing brass metallic.
That's the one. That was the dealer principal special. That spec
with olive leather. And this is it's for sale. Here it is. It's beautiful. And it's probably going to go wrong, and probably everyone's going to moan and tell me the things that go wrong with it. But what can go wrong really with an M3 convertible
in that colour?
In that colour for £23,000. I did find my equivalent and I'm doing a Chris Cooper and breaking the rules. There's an E90. Oh shit, you can't see. There's an E90. Oh, look at that. Where's
Yep.
that gone? Bollocks.
We'll get it.
An E90 red. Look at that. Convertible.
I like. Yeah.
That's a SMG as well. But frankly, M3 is just great. We love the M3, even the motorway, the M3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a Corvette and a Caterham. And a McGann.
Yeah.
I think, is it fair to say that those of us that are really sad on this subject, the two cars that we vacillate most about are which era of 911 we like the most and which looks the best that week, and also the M3. I went totally off the E90 series, the V8 ones, for years. Now I think they're absolutely stunning and I want one. Whereas about 5 years ago, I just thought
The
they were
engine.
shit.
Yeah. It's all about 911 and M3. Everything else can fuck off, basically.
Yeah. And it's an economic indicator, isn't it?
So, now this is a good one. This was posed by Mr. Clifford. Games you play on your own whilst driving. This has nothing to do with Manish Pandey's mention of the word climax earlier, by the way. So expunge that from your mind straight away. Self-pleasure is not allowed in this particular section. Neil Clifford, what do you do?
Well, there was an additional little element to my question because I wrote at night.
Oh, okay.
Now, we all do, and it's harder nowadays, or maybe I'm getting old. We all do the can we spot the cars by the shape or design of the rear light?
Yeah.
And it was always something we did, I think, religiously. Certainly, I did as a child. But this was when there were Jensen Interceptors and Avengers and funny cars with quite strange rear lights. And now cars are a little bit more generic, so I find it a little bit more difficult to spot cars at night from the rear lights. Or maybe I'm not so au fait with the modern sort of car to do that. But what I also do is I basically try to spot the make of the car from a long distance. And as long as I've got my glasses on, because if I don't have my glasses on at night, I frankly can't almost see bloody anything. And I need that laser treatment or I need something else out of my eyes. And frankly, I'm quite dangerous. But I do religiously try to wear my glasses. Spotting cars from a long way away, either via the rear lights or, let's not talk about Jaguar. Although they've gone a little bit busier on their Instagram, so we might need to come back to Jaguar quite soon.
Yeah, I've got a Jaguar story I need to put to everybody. We'll come back to that.
Jaguar. I was explaining this to my wife, and I'm sure she was very, very interested recently. You can spot a Jaguar from such distance because they are just so curvy, so pretty, so amazing. Whether it be XK8 or whether it be XJS or whether it be XJ. They're just different shapes to other cars. So I think spotting cars at night, whether it be the rear lights or just the physical shape, is a game that I play religiously.
Good
Okay,
game.
so I'm going to tell you a game I used to play at night that I shouldn't admit to, but when I was really bored and I used to drive across continents for car magazines, because I'm sitting in the French service station, if it was really quiet and about 3 a.m, I would identify a vehicle that was travelling on the inside lane and see if I could overtake it by going down the slipway to the services and get down through the services and out the other side and get past the car. Yeah. And I very rarely failed. That was a very good game, that one. Manish Pandey, what do you do at night to keep yourself amused?
Manish Pandey has got the same eye problems as Neil. When I got my bifocals done, they said, would you like some anti-reflective coating on those glasses, sir? And I said, yes, please, because I've noticed the number of cars which have got very bright LEDs, which just happen to be exactly the same level as my eyes. So my favorite game at night is both hands on the steering wheel and survive to where I'm going without being flashed to death. That's my basic survival instinct game. But I do have one for dusk, actually. This is quite a good one. Only when I'm on my own, and it works well at dusk. Spot the grey car almost before you hit it, especially if it's matte. That is a bad color for cars, and that kind of whole matte gray, semi-gloss gray, crap color, no visibility on any kind of road. Should be made illegal.
Chris Cooper, what? Give us. I've got another one to come afterwards, but you tell us what you would do at night to keep yourself amused.
So my games actually weren't at night time. Although the game that you've played, Chris, I think you could add a little frisson of excitement and perhaps reduce the number of times you get through by stopping at the Starbucks drive-through on the way.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good game too. So I had two games. The first one is I quite like playing a game where occasionally you see manufacturers have disguised their cars. They're new cars, lots of cladding and stuff. And I think it's a great game to see, can I recognize what that car is, even though it's been disguised and completely changed, whatever. So I saw one that somebody had actually tried for me. So for those of you in black and white, I'm showing a picture on my screen of a Morgan car. There we are. It's a Morgan. It's a lovely thing. We all know what a Morgan looks like. There we go. Blah, blah, blah. So Morgan offered a picture of a car that is a new car. It's camouflage, so we're not allowed to know what it looks like. It looks like that.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening on the wireless, even to the automotively untrained eye, it looks exactly like a Morgan. In fact, it looks like a Morgan that's been bought by a professional Premier League footballer with that funny sort of Aubameyang style camo treatment. But my favorite game is at night, nighttime or daytime. I quite often play this when I'm driving in Europe. Maybe driving back from, I don't know, a really great road trip from, say, Italy, somewhere like that. And I stop at a service station and I like to look around to see, how's everyone parked? How is everyone parked? Is their parking good?
You bastard.
And what would you know? What would you know? Somebody in our group, I'm not saying who, somebody in our group sent us that photograph. And I had to say to them, when do you intend to finish that parking maneuver? Look, I mean, it's all over the lines at the side.
Yeah.
They haven't really entered the parking space. And worse, it's the wrong way round.
I'll give you my explanation now. I'll give you my explanation now. I might have had a slight technical issue with the Fiat this morning. There was a loud banging noise coming from underneath the vehicle. We thought it was in the cabin initially, but we did a bit of a rattle check at several leptons miles an hour, and we worked out it was actually outside the vehicle. So I thought to myself, well, either a tire's delaminated and it's whacking within the wheel arch, that's not going to help me get back in 10 hours, or we have another issue. So I parked it up and very helpfully put my front lifter on, lifted it up a bit, so I had to get so I could get under the front of the car and have a look. That's why there's a gap at the front. Turns out there's an under tray that has somehow been hit, I think, by a ratchet strap that came off a lorry in front of us, and has hit the under tray and peeled the leading edge down. So it now, over a certain speed, just does this, bang, 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 bang. So I've been on my back in 3 service areas now, with my other half taking photographs of me, going, this Ferrari ownership's really good, isn't it? But actually, do you know what? I freaking love this 458 Spider. It is a brilliant car, and it's not its fault that it hit a ratchet strap at speed. And I will never, ever share a photograph within this group again, because I think it's totally unfair. You've broken the Omata there. You've absolutely broken the code. And you think of the things I've got on file of you, Cooper. Just you wait.
To make up for that, I've got one more game we can...
No, wait. Chris drove me in Rome in that car. And I have to tell you, 1, it is very beautiful. 2, he is actually a really good driver. And 3, someone tried to come right up our bums with that car to make him go quickly, and he did. And it was like that great moment in Star Wars when you go into light speed. He just went whoop, in our rearview mirror in a tunnel. That was my favorite bit of the weekend. How good was that?
Manish experienced a climax in a Roman tunnel.
Yeah.
I did.
Can I show one more game we can all play at night?
Please.
There's a game that I've played at night on the motorway where you see a police car on the inside lane of a motorway going at a modest speed, somewhere below the limit. And there are cars in the middle lane that are going slightly faster past it. And you're in the overtaking lane going faster. The game that I love playing is to pick a car in the middle lane that I can accelerate past. So as the cars go past,
Yes.
the policeman never sees me.
Oh.
Yes, I do that.
Because you're going fast enough. You have to look in that little mirror at the side to say,
Yes.
do I have to back off or go faster? Depending on how wide the motorway is, you might be doing 100 and a million miles an hour when you get down the road. I think that's a great game to play.
Yes, hiding behind a lorry thing on. Yes, that's really good.
Exactly, that one. Everyone can play that. Don't blame us.
Do you come out of the bathroom and put a towel around your head and think no one can see you? Because that's the same thing.
When I was more interesting, I wrapped a 918 in the camouflage of a 919 Le Mans car and drove it all the way to Le Mans and back with my son.
That's quite cool.
And it was so good. Even I got the little Michelin man, and look at that.
Yeah.
That was when I was very silly.
I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a question that you don't have to answer. Can you tell us who the first owner of that car was?
I know a few owners, and in fact, the car is for sale on Piston Heads. And no, I've got a story about my Carrera GT, which is a very strange, very strange owner. Yeah, the Carrera GT was slightly connected to the Gulf War, but the 918 definitely it's for sale on Piston Head. It's now wrapped in Martini spec, very weird spec. But anyway, it was a 919 for a weekend.
Oh.
God, I wish I was as interesting as I was then.
So I'll tell you one game that we used to play back in the day, and I used to get really bored. I've just come through Perugia a few days ago. As we drove around the outskirts, we popped in and got a slice of pizza and went to marvel at some beautiful medieval churches. Makes me sound civilized. I'm not. I just needed to stretch my legs. And it reminded me that I drove to Perugia and back in a Peugeot 206 once, like a 1.3 basic one. It took forever.
Amazing.
So I used to get really bored with these things. So one of the things I used to love doing is I'd identify a vehicle that I thought had a driver or a passenger in the front, or maybe people in the back, that were looking around a bit. And I'd spot it, and then I'd assume the most ridiculous driving position I could find. I'd either move myself so close that I could steer the wheel with my nipples, or I'd recline to the point that I looked like I was asleep behind the wheel. And I'd drive alongside them for as long as possible until they noticed, and then try and act as if I hadn't spotted they were looking at me, and just try and style it out. I once drove side by side with a family of four in an Audi A4 Avant, pretty much from Geneva to Dijon, with my boobs on the steering wheel, and no one spotted me. I thought I was the funniest man alive, and there was just this family of four studiously looking forwards. I got nothing from it at all.
Yeah,
nothing.
Yeah. I've been known to be rowing. But it's always funnier for you than other people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, moving on. Now we have a special guest. Two special guests coming on now. Okay. We've had a slight pause there in our recording. It'll be seamless on the edit because we're so professional. We have two special guests with us today. Because something rather rotten happened in the last week to a very special and valued member of the car community in the UK called Robert Denton. He's a friend of all of ours, and he is the most present man at every car meeting I've ever been to. We love him dearly. He's a big supporter of this podcast, and he's always supported us. And some lowlife nicked his car, and Neil and the other man present here, Merlin, from Duke of London, that amazingly eclectic bunch of cars that he sells, every single one of which we want to own, are great friends of Robert's and have done a GoFundMe or a crowdfunding page and have basically raised a fantastically absurd amount of money. And we are now going to help spend that money by this week converting our 2-car garage into a Robert's 1-car garage. And we hope that the results of this experiment might in some way influence the buying decision. Robert, by the way, can talk the back legs off a herd of donkeys. So I'm going to leave this now. I'm going to leave it to Neil and the wonderful Merlin to help me marshal what could be, I suspect,
Thank you.
madness. Merlin, over to you, please, first.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, as you touched upon, Robert Denton, the omnipresent car man, has sadly had his car nicked. Well, nicked and sort of vandalised more than anything. They didn't make off with it. So on Thursday evening last week, Robert returned to his car down in Dorset where he lives. It's parked at the top of a hill, or it was parked at the top of a hill. He came back to find just shattered glass on the floor. These scumbags had smashed through the passenger window, taken the handbrake off of it, and just let it roll down the bottom of the hill and written it off into a tree. It wasn't very funny. So we caught wind of this. Naturally, Robert was very upset. Anyone who's met Robert, which is probably half the people that listen to this podcast, will know he is at every single bloody car event in existence in the UK, and he's very heavily dependent on his wheels. As soon as word got round that this had happened to Robert, it became very apparent very quickly that a lot of people wanted to help. So we set up this GoFundMe. Neil and I had a chat with his family to make sure it was all okay. And yeah, I mean, the money aside, it has raised an obscene amount of money in such a short period of time, but it's more the number of people who've contributed. I think there's almost up to 500 people who have adored Robert in many ways over the years and want to help out. So we are now in a position where we've got, am I right in saying about 25 grand?
Yeah.
Robert's new
Just over.
new set of wheels. Yeah. Craziness. But yeah, firstly, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you very much to everyone who has contributed already. We're going to round up the funding at the end of this week and go shopping with Robert, which is going to be a fucking experience next week. But yeah, it's I'm not quite sure. Any car dealers who see my number pop up Monday, Tuesday next week, you may choose to ignore the call, and fair enough. But yeah, no, thank you, everybody. It's been humbling for everybody else involved to see what generosities come out of this.
Robert, now it's your turn. So tell us what it's like to go from the utter pain of loss to the euphoria of knowing you've got new toys coming. Tell us what it's like.
Complete and utter shock, to be honest. Literally, the money that was out, that was crazy. It's crazy how much has been raised so far, but the amount of people that's donated, even more crazy, to be honest. Some have given £5 and some have given up the top amount, 500 quid. I'm lost for words, and I can't thank everyone who's donated so far enough. Genuinely, from the bottom of my very squished heart, well, it's not squished, it's just massive heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you all so much so far. But I think it's time for some madness. And I am going to give you lots of, well, you give me some suggestions. And
Yes.
I'll see if they're any good or for the bin.
Yes.
So for the ones of doubt, this is the scenario. Before Neil starts, the scenario is this. An imaginary man called Robert came back to find his car had been broken into and someone had taken the handbrake off and it had gone into a tree. He was left with £25,000 to replace this car, with which he has to supply himself a 1-car garage. First time in history, a 1-car garage. Neil Clifford with an N. Can you go first, please?
Yeah. Yes. Well, we all adore Robert. I think. How many events did you go to last year, Robert? Car events?
About 170.
Wow.
Yeah.
Embarrassing for some, yes.
Yeah. So we all see. Yeah, we all see Robert everywhere. We all try to look out for him, particularly Merlin and Giorgio, Merlin's partner. We all try to look after Robert as much as we can. He does often break down. It's fair to say. I think if there was a black Amex of the AA, he would have it. I think the most important thing, in truth, because we can be silly and buy him sports cars and XJSs and lots of things that
Yes.
Robert Mustangs. Robert is a huge fan of the Mustang, but I think we have to try to be sensible, and we have to also set aside some money for his insurance and his MOTs and his servicing and petrol. Because Robert, how many miles do you do in a year, would you say?
This is embarrassing. About 10 or 15,000 miles.
Yeah, and you live down near Bournemouth, so we need reliability. I'm going to be boring for once, and I'm gonna go golf. I'm going to go Mark 7 Golf. I don't really know what the different ones are. Maybe there's a GTD.
Yeah.
There's just that standard 1.6 Golf plain. You want Apple Play. You want heated seats. You want reliability. You want maybe a manufacturer's warranty. You want to go and buy it from a Volkswagen dealer if you can. But we're talking about, I think, 15,000 in order that we've got enough money to look after Robert for a couple of years. So that would be my suggestion. A bit boring, but I think that's probably the most logical approach here to look after Robert.
Boring might be best in this scenario.
We've got one doctor in the house, Dr. Manish. Where would you spend this £25,000, please? We're looking for a grown-up response here.
Well, I'm going to recycle a car from 2 weeks ago because I thought about this in the short period of time I've had to think about this. And I think this is underrated. It's 4 cylinders. It's a 2.2 litre manual car. It's incredibly stylish. £17,000. It's got 80,000 miles on the clock, but the engine was stripped down in the 90s at 61,000 miles. So it's really only like a 20,000 mile engine. And this is you in a car. I think it's a beautiful.
What? Elite from the 70s.
Yeah, the S2. That's you. That's you.
You
in a
are
car.
serious? Are you
I'm
serious?
17,000
Down every 5
miles.
minutes.
No.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
That's what Manish is here for, Robert.
So cool.
I love him. That is a brilliant suggestion. If I had a second car, if I was allowed a second car on a bigger budget. But I'm afraid, mate, that has officially been rejected on the grounds of it being completely, utterly stupid. And also, do you know what Lotus stands for? Do you know what Lotus stands for?
What is it,
Tell
Robert?
me.
Loads of trouble, usually serious.
Exactly.
If you put enough letter between the U and the S, very serious.
I think the challenge is Manish only does 300 miles a year, so he doesn't actually
know what reliability is.
Yeah, he hardly drives.
Yes.
It's about to
But
double
that's
to
not
Merlin, I
6. That's got to be made even nicer.
Merlin, I suspect you're going to have to probably make this transaction. So can you tell us where the 25 grand goes, please?
Yeah, of course. So we, as Neil's rightfully said, we have kind of earmarked around 15k for this dream machine, and we want to keep Robert on the road going forward. Robert doesn't work, and so we need to make sure that years to come he is covered for, as Neil says, servicing, MOTs, etc. We've even looked into third-party warranties that probably aren't worth the paper they're written on for certain things that Robert keeps sending me. But yeah, we're going to end up. We don't really want to blow the whole thing as much as Robert would love to, and he's been sending me lots of fun links.
85% of it.
Yeah.
75%.
But yeah, no,
actually.
he was calculating how many passengers he'd get into a Range Rover the other day, but we had to kind of.
The answer's too many, and also it would explode and then connect. So no.
So yeah, I
what,
can't tell you how excited I am to go car shopping.
Okay, so what's it going to be? What's it going to be? Come on, Merlin, tell us, where would you spend the money?
Do your worst.
I think. Well, Rob's a big fan of a Volvo,
Ooh.
so he's got a lot of miles to cover every year. It's going to have to be something diesel, something relatively modern. They all seem to have lead ballooned. ULEZ is a big thing because at the moment, every time this lovely man drives to London, I get the WhatsApp saying, "Can you please pay my ULEZ, regardless of if he's coming to see me or not."
Yes.
So
Yes.
we need to get over that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so whatever.
£12.50 every time.
So you
Can
can
I
take
do
that off
that?
the tan. Yeah, you can. I'll send you my number.
Oh, Chris.
Whatever the sort of hatchbacky Volvo is, it the S? Oh,
You
Robert, come
mean
on,
the
help me out here.
V40?
V40. There we go.
You mean the
No.
V40?
That's
Yeah.
that's a good car.
V40
Sounds
diesel.
appealing. Yeah.
Nice and safe, nice and reliable.
Yeah. Basically a Focus with a
Yeah.
nice, pretty bodywork and some Scandinavianness attached to it.
I'm about to say, yeah, Robert's a fan of the Scandies, so
In other
I
words,
think this
some
ticks a lot of
IKEA
boxes.
furniture perhaps might go in it.
Yeah. Yes.
Let's leave that
Lots
there.
of those Scando shapes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we've got a
The
Volvo there.
curvy sort of furniture piece.
Before I bring Chris Cooper into this, I'd like to tell you, Robert, that you are creating quite a stir in this French service station because your voice has this wonderful, strident, clear quality to it. So you are, I think, audible right down the end of the auto grill, which runs 200 yards down there, and all the way down into the shop. People really are looking at me.
Clarify what
It's
sorry is in
working well.
French.
It's wonderful, yeah, désolé. So, Chris Cooper, you normally add some maturity to this. What's it going to be?
I'm with Neil. I think a Mark 7.5 Golf. Tartan seats. I think DSG. I think Merlin is right. There's lots of important and serious stuff in terms of maintenance and future pathway and all those kind of things. I've had a little look around because I think there is an accessory that you should have with this car that is as important as all the other protection. And I think it's a robot dog. It's a robot dog that sits in the back of your Mark 7.5, and it just, as soon as it senses a ne'er-do-well coming towards you, it bounces and barks around. It's going to bark through all the speakers of the car. I think you'd have a Mark 7.5 with a sunroof. And this robot dog will be able to operate the sunroof, jump out the sunroof, and scare all those bastards away. Yeah. I first met you, Robert, when I started doing this.
Yeah.
And I was really, I mean, everyone's already said it. You have an amazing passion for the thing that we love.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievably infectious. So the next car you have, we've got to make sure that the ne'er-do-wells don't go near it. So Mark 7.5 Gold, tartan seats, DSG, robot dog.
That goes.
Yeah, good. That one. If anyone's listening, take record that.
Messieurs and Mesdames of the service station.
Right, I'm turning my volume down now before I get logged out. Okay, so I'm gonna have a hack at this. So I'm gonna feed Robert's inner child here, and I love the fact he's got some support from Merlin and Neil. They're the sensible heads, but he also needs to be encouraged to be a little bit reckless. You got to push it against mum and dad, haven't you? You can't just take all the good advice. And I always think there's a particular car that can be wise. It can be wise.
I only live once. I'll probably never see it again.
But Robert, I think there's a way of being a little bit sort of adventurous, but being underpinned with something sensible. Do you remember when BMW did that? They did an Alpina D3 of the E90 generation. It's about 205 horsepower. It's basically a 320D that's been chipped up nicely. It's got a really good chassis. You can get a low mileage one of those is well under 15 grand, and it'll do 50 to the gallon. It's not too fast. Really? It rides beautifully, and every time you walk towards it, you own an Alpina, which is it's going to make your life feel better.
Yes.
I think Merlin and Neil need to have a look at one of these. They're not expensive. They're not expensive to insure. They're really fuel efficient. I think I've won this again.
Yeah, I think you've won.
I'll give you that.
I think it might be the only cars to go up in value because they're going to stop making proper Alpinas soon, as you probably will know.
Yeah.
And they're all just
I know. That's why we've all been buying
BMWs with just.
There's a challenge for Merlin. Go.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Cheers.
There you go. Have that one from me for free there, Merlin. You'll enjoy that one. So, look, I'm sorry about the chaotic state of my particular internet connection. I'm going to move us on now to our music round. I want our two guests to stay with this, please. So we're going to choose a song. We always choose a song at the end of the podcast. And Robert,
Yes,
I'd like you to
my
choose,
favourite bit.
please, one song for the podcast this week. What's Robert Denton's music for the car podcast this week?
Right. Following the sad passing of the drummer of the Jam, I thought I'd recite a lyric or two from one of their songs. You ready?
Yep.
Yes.
I've learned more than you'll ever know. Even at school, I felt quite sure that one day I would be on top, and I'd look down upon the map. The teachers who said I'd be nothing. The modern world.
This is the modern world.
This is the modern world.
Modern world.
With some swearing
It's
in one of the
absolutely-
lyrics.
Yeah.
It's a cracking song. And a sad loss, because that's a great British band.
That's a great song.
Great song. Neil Clifford, what are you going for?
I'm going right behind Robert. You know, Weller wrote the lyrics to my teenage youth. Really, Rick Buckler was my drummer. You know, it wasn't Phil Collins, it wasn't Copeland, it wasn't any of those lot. Rick Buckler was my drummer. I was there, I think, December 9th, Brighton, 1982. I was there at the last gig. It was tragic. You know, Beat Surrender was launched 2 weeks before. The whole thing collapsed. We couldn't believe it. Weller was a selfish bastard because that was our favourite band. Forevermore. Funeral Pyre, the Jam. Best drumming of any Jam song is my choice.
I think that's a fantastic tune. By the way, Neil, can we ask, where do you stand on the Style Council? Can you deal with the Style Council, or was it not acceptable?
You know what? I forgave him because in the end, you know, that he was all about evolution, wasn't he? Weller. He always wanted to move it on, and the fashion of the Style Council was great. Those loafers, the short trousers, you know, hanging out in Paris. It was cool, but I never totally forgave him for dropping those two boys in the shit, really, because they didn't recover from it. But I did like the music because he's a genius.
Yeah, he basically went from the punk of the late 70s, early 80s and the New Romantics onto the sophisti-pop of the mid-80s with such a plumb and seamlessness. And
Yeah,
he went
he
to
was-
solo sometime in the 90s, I believe.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I was sent the most random photograph
Next song.
about a year and a half ago. I was sent this photograph by someone. Someone wanted to borrow a car for a wedding. I don't have a car that's good for a wedding. All I had was one 4-seater. I had an M5 CS in that frozen green colour, which I never should have sold. Best car ever. And to say thank you for borrowing the car off me, this mate from Bristol gave me a bottle of whiskey and he sent me a photo of who he took to the wedding. It was Paul Weller in the back of it. It's totally random. I don't know what was going on. It was in Bristol. It was a wedding in Bristol. I got the mod father in the back of the M5 CS. Right, let's move on. Merlin, what's your song going to be?
He's cool.
I've got a Weller story from today. He turned up to our cobblers on site today to check his shoes in. And
No.
I'll tell you what, all my life, he lives around the corner now. He's the only man in the world who can pull that haircut off. Many have tried, many have failed. And he's still the sharpest dressed man in London. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
I'm going off piste though. We were in Paris last week for Retromobile, and we ended up getting a bit carried away one night, and we were half an hour outside Paris, driving back around the periphery at 6 a.m, having been to a very fun event. 7 Up in a Range Rover, listening to All Night Long by the Mary Jane Girls, and I haven't stopped listening to it since.
lovely song.
So that's
Nice.
going on there. It was
That's a
song.
great tune.
Very good.
Chris Cooper, what are you going to
I
go
think I
for?
need to play all this.
Well, you know how much I am not a follower of fashion or a style icon or anything like that. So I've got a bit. I'm always a bit contrarian, countercultural. So I haven't gone for a Paul Weller or a Jam song. I think the slightly more important part of this gathering for me is that soon, hopefully, Robert, we'll all be in a little convoy together. And there's going to be something anthemic about our little gathering and a little driving somewhere. Lola might even be ready by then, Manish. Not that we're waiting for it. For me, blaring out, there's nothing better for that than John Miles' music.
Beautiful
cool.
song. Masterpiece.
Beautiful song.
Masterpiece.
Exactly. I'm glad we agree, Robert.
I think I should
Manish?
send that to Bob Harris. Manish,
Yeah.
your turn.
Manish, what?
Come on,
Can
Manish.
you,
So I
can you manage?
I
We
know what
looked
song
to you.
finished
would
with-
go for. Just say it.
I love it. It's like this is honestly. I thought you lot were uncontrollable. It's like a zoo. This is. It's brilliant.
I've been
Manish,
assured.
can you add a little bit of culture to us, please?
Yes, I can. And I'm going to go with Noel Harrison's Windmills of My
Oh,
Mind
good.
from
That's
the
good.
Great
Band
song.
Look at that.
Great song.
The original and the
And
best
that
was
was
Steve
going to
Queen.
be
Yeah.
With the
Fade on away.
The original.
that was
The
at
original.
Selfridges on Sunday.
Yeah, it's good.
Very
Really?
beach buggy.
So I have been assured that Lola will be handed over on March the 6th.
Good. We're going to
breath.
Cornwall.
March
You
the
better
6th.
have. Neil's booked
AJ's
out the
going to
7th
give
to
me
go
the
to
keys
Cornwall.
on March the 6th. I'll probably get 100 yards.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, right. I'm not quite sure how I've managed to last in here this long, but we're certainly getting some looks now. I'm a big fan of the film The Big Lebowski, and I'm not sure I could really like people that don't like The Big Lebowski, because it's a film full of joy. And the
I
dude,
agree.
I think all of us would love to have that sort of pulse rate of the dude, just sauntering through life with stuff just falling off him like he's Teflon coated. But the dude was wrong about one thing. The Eagles are a great band. It's the only thing that jars in the whole film is when he goes, when he has a pop at the Eagles. I'm like, no, dude, you've got that wrong. The Eagles is a great band. So, and I've been listening to the Eagles on repeat.
Yeah.
We've only got 2 CDs in the car, so my other half doesn't like the Eagles at the moment, but I still love them. And I'm going to go for One of These Nights, because it just always makes me smile, and I want to tap the steering wheel
Yes.
when I'm going along.
Oh,
to One of These Nights by the Eagles.
that's good.
Beautiful.
That has been a most
Good choices,
enjoyable
guys.
report. Can I just say, on behalf of our podcast, thank you, Merlin and Robert, for coming on. If you go to any car events, gatherings in the UK this spring, summer, or autumn, go and say hello to Robert. He's a fountain of all knowledge, and he has more enthusiasm for the subject than a young Labrador. It's utterly infectious. And all of you that's helped fund this new project, this new car, thank you so flipping much, because it matters so much to a man who needs to be mobile. Last words, please, from Merlin and Neil. I'm going to shut up now, okay?
Over to you, Merlin.
Just echoing what Chris said, I think it's been, as I said earlier, quite a humbling experience for everyone involved, just how many people have come out. I think one thing to take away from this for Robert's family, which was really quite touching, is I think for a number of years they've worried about Robert being at these car events on his own. He's ferociously independent, as he'll be the first to admit, but his family have naturally had doubts in their mind that, will he be accepted and brought on board, because he is a larger than life character. And for them to see nearly 500 people come out the woodwork and contribute has put their mind totally to rest forever. They know now that this support network around him and his friendship group that he comes home and tells them about it's a real thing, it's a true thing, and people do genuinely adore him for who he is. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, very true. And we'll put the GoFundMe link up on this
Yeah.
just in case we
Yeah.
get another couple of grand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we
One
leave
of
it
us,
go?
Robert.
Should we leave it going for? Should we
Welcome.
leave it going for another 48 hours? See if we can get a few more quid.
Yes, yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's
Agreed.
punch it up there. We can run it for the weekend.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
So on
Great.
behalf of myself, Manish, Chris Cooper, Neil with an N, Robert Denton, and Merlin from the Duke of London, thank you so much for listening this week, and we look forward to boring the pants off you next week. Bye bye.